Welcome to Authentic Leadership Academy. This is your weekly live business session. And my name remains Olatunji Shobodu, the convener. And it's my pleasure and privilege to bring to you another live business session today. So thank you once again for joining me. And if you recall, we began another series last week, and that series was titled, It's Not About Skill. It's not about skill. It's not about skill. That's what we began to talk about last week. So part one was last week. I want to encourage you to check it out if you have not listened to it. And so what's the idea? What did we begin to talk about last week? What's the big deal about skill? Actually, the issue is a bit tricky, tricky in the sense that, some of us who have been told over time to acquire multiple skills, and what have you. I guess that counsel is being challenged, or you may feel that maybe what I'm doing is to challenge that counsel. Now, that counsel is right, that counsel is good, but this session is a series of sessions is to help you balance things, okay? To say, yes, skill is good, skill is important, but skill is not the most important thing. And that while you're at it, I think you should pay more attention to leadership, more attention to leadership. And if you consider leadership to be a skill, maybe a people skill, then you want to pay more attention to acquiring that kind of skill than just the technical skills, IT and what have you. And, that's what we began to talk about last week. And last week, I made the point about the preference of leaders for people with character above people with technical skills. I gave that statement last week where a leader said, yes, it is true that leadership is, a nation. But if you had the choice just to somebody with one skill comes to leadership, somebody with, and if they, then what that is that for than to have skill. To say that to be a true leader, character development than on skills development. It's interesting, but that's the truth. And that's what we began to share last week. And so it's important that you look at that. I want to carry the discussion forward today. And if you like, maybe a subtopic, for us today would be the humiliation of skill. The humiliation of skill. The humiliation of skill. Maybe that's harsh, you might say. What do I mean? I mean, can skill be humiliated? Of course, skill can be humiliated. And I want to show you where skill was humiliated. In fact, if you start from the example that I gave last week, you see that, skill can be humiliated. Skill is always exposed to humiliation. But true leadership is never exposed to humiliation. And I'll tell you why. All right. When you find a true leader, he would never come against a situation where he will be humiliated. Maybe that's one reason why you should take the idea of, pursuing leadership skills and leadership development as a matter of priority, because you seldom would find true leaders humiliated. Of course, impostor leaders will be humiliated thoroughly. All right, fake leaders, hypocritical leaders will be humiliated. Why? Because they are wolf in sheep clothing. They are made up of deceit. They're a bundle of lies. And you know what they say? Lies have a short lifespan. At some point, they're going to expire. The truth, will expire them. And so the fakeness of them would be exposed, if you like. But truth is truth. And true leaders operate by truth. You can't humiliate the truth. In the short run, you might feel that somebody who insists on the truth was humiliated, but I guarantee you that that person is going to laugh last. That person will laugh last. That person will laugh last. I'm just reminded now, one of the examples where you find a humiliation of hypocrite leaders is the case in the Bible where some leaders, in their usual manner, the Pharisees, caught a woman, and they said this woman was caught in adultery. And it was like a celebrated case. They were so happy at what they thought they had accomplished. They ran to Jesus, all right, and they wanted to tempt Jesus. They believed Jesus was empathetic, he was weak, he showed understanding, and he didn't follow principles, all right? He didn't commit himself to their law, not knowing that Jesus was even more committed to the law and operated by the principles of the law more than they, okay, who were only pretending to be following the law. But in that particular instance, they were exposed. And so they ran to Jesus and said, hey, we caught this woman in adultery. And this is what the law says. Moses says, when we catch people like that, we should stone them to death. What do you say we should do? They were asking the master. They were asking the leader, the authentic leader. The fake leaders set a trap for him. Okay. And they said, and he looked down, long and short. I mean, an interesting, encounter there. He then said to them, he said, no problem. I know what Moses' law says, but whoever it is who has not committed any sin, who has never had an infraction, okay, who had never done anything wrong, let him be the first to cast the stone. So I agree that the law says you should stone her to death. All right, but let's see who are those that are going to stone her. But let me help you. If you have not done anything, I'm not saying that maybe you have done what she did. I'm saying if you have never committed any infraction, all right, you be the first to throw the stone. So he wasn't saying they shouldn't throw the stone. He just provided them, with a caveat. And that caveat revealed the true nature of the characters who had come before him. They were absolute hypocrites. Why? Because not one of them could throw the stone. Not one of them, not one, not even one out of the crowd who were celebrating. They wanted to trap the leader. They didn't know the leader was more authentic. They didn't know the leader was a person of truth. They didn't know the leader was committed to upholding the so-called law more than they. They didn't know the leader himself lived by that law. All right. And they were humiliated. So you see, they were humiliated. Fake leaders, humiliation awaits them. from time to time. Why? Because they are fake. Why? Because they talk about principles. They don't obey them. They don't honor them. They demand others comply. They never comply. There are many dimensions of the hypocrisy. Okay? And so they all disappeared. And then the master said to the woman, so what's going on? Has anybody stoned you? Has anybody condemned you? She said, no. He said, so I do not condemn you as well. I don't condemn you, but go and don't do what you have done, what you were caught doing anymore. And one of the things that we always ask is that, doesn't it take two to tango? I mean, if you caught a woman in adultery, why is it the woman alone? I thought there's supposed to be a man. So you should have brought two people forward, not one. More than that, there are other lessons in that encounter, but that's not our, focus for today. But you can see that, fake leaders will be humiliated. They will be humiliated, no question about it. But true leaders can't be humiliated. That's what they planned for Jesus, but they saw that it didn't work. All right, because he was smarter, he knew more. And he operated by very clear principles that he understood, and he operated as an authentic leader. So he didn't just say things, he didn't just teach things, he also complied with them. He didn't just make demands of his people, he also did exactly what he was asking his people to do. All right? So I wanted to quickly rest that as we begin to look at the substance today. And I want to share with you one of my, I have many favorite scriptures, but let me share this one with you. Let's start from here. Ecclesiastes 9 and verse 11. Let me bring that. Ecclesiastes 9 and verse 11. Let's look at what it says. And so you see where I came up with the idea of the humiliation of skill. Look at what it says in verse 11, Ecclesiastes 9. He said, I return, and this was the wise man talking. We know who is the wisest man, at the time. He said, I returned and saw under the sun that the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, neither yet bread to the wise, nor yet riches to men of understanding. Take note of the next. Nor yet favor to men of skill. All right? Nor yet favor to men of what? Skill. I said, but time and chance happens to them all. Time and chance happens to them all. Let's quickly read the New Living Translation. Just for better understanding, maybe more simplistic, rendition. It says, I have observed something else under the sun. The fastest runner doesn't always win the race, and the strongest warrior doesn't always win the battle. The wise sometimes also go hungry, and the skillful, take note, the skillful are not necessarily wealthy. It says, and those who are educated don't always lead successful lives. And those who are educated don't always lead successful lives. It says it is all decided by chance, by being in the right place at the right time. That's how, that's how this guy interpreted, that's the wisdom that is sharing with us. So it says, favor does not go to men of skill. Favor doesn't go to men of skill. That means you can be skillful yet you lack favor. You can be skillful in your company and you are not celebrated and you are not differentiated. You can be skillful and be like any other person, that it is possible that you have the skills, but hey, big deal. You are not accorded the recognition. That means skill is not always sufficient to enjoy favor. If you look at the other one, it says the skillful are not necessarily wealthy. It means skill will not necessarily make you wealthy. So it's not just about skill. By itself, skill is insufficient. I love this statement because what it says to us is there's a concept in mathematics that we call it the necessary but insufficient condition. All right? That if you must win, you must have something is necessary, but having it does not guarantee that you will win. That is, there is something else that you need that is more important than that thing that is necessary. Okay? And that's the kind of point that we want to make here. Said so, skill is important, but how important is it? Is it worth the kind of emphasis that we placed on it? So it's not as important. Why? Because skill can fail. The purpose for which you acquire skill, you can fail to achieve it despite engaging the skill that you have acquired. That's what this statement is telling us. That's the wisdom. That's it. That is insight. So this cautions us to be, hey, be careful. For those who acquire skills and suddenly they become proud, they think that, that's all there is to life. No, that's not all there is to life. Why? Because your skill can fail. You can get to a point where skill refuses to produce for you your expectations. The same reasons why you acquired it. The success that you are looking for at work or in your career. That's what we're told. Interestingly here, there are a couple more things that we're warned about. All right? So we're told here that, look, the fact that you are fast does not necessarily mean you will win the race. But notice, if you want to win a race, you need speed as well. But you are told here that speed, the fact that you have it doesn't mean that, victory is guaranteed. No. The fact that you have strength doesn't mean you will win every battle. Goliath had strength. He didn't win that battle. He didn't. 3 nations ganged up in a conspiracy. They came against Judah and Jehoshaphat. 2 Chronicles 20. They didn't win that battle. Okay? So, but it's useful to have strength. But be careful not to think that once you have it, you are home and dry. No, you are not. You can be wise, but it may not put bread on your table. There are occasions where the wise go hungry. Can you believe that? Can you believe that? All right. So we're given different scenarios, but I'm focusing on skill because we're talking about skill. I'm focusing on skill because that's what we're talking about. So what happens when you have relied on your skill and you are not getting what you believed you should get? You are humiliated because you've over-relied on it. You had thought that the skill is all there is to life and it will get you anywhere. And like I said last week, there is only so far that any skill can get you. There's only so far. Because beyond a point, what is required is leadership. What is required is what do you have to manage people, to lead people? And in that case, I use lead and manage interchangeably so that we don't get into all the discussion about management being different from leadership. Let that not take us away from what we're talking about. So you have skill. Skill is humiliated here. That's why I said the humiliation of skill. Haven't we seen it? Don't we see it every time? When even the guys, the so-called IT guys, something happens and they try everything they know and they just can't, sort out the problem. Haven't we seen the best of systems that are hacked? All right. Yet there's security, there's all of that, but they are still hacked. And the information of many people are exposed. Humiliation of skill. Humiliation of skill. But when you look at all of the scenarios painted here, there are things that can happen. There are cautions that we should not rely on speed. We shouldn't rely on strength. We shouldn't rely on wisdom. We shouldn't rely on skill alone. All of them are useful. All of them are valuable. But we must not over-rely on them. Why? Because they are not foolproof. They are not foolproof. If they were foolproof, this counsel would be meaningless. From a man who ought to know. If they were foolproof, this counsel will be meaninless. This tells us that skill is not foolproof. And this is the kind of thing that can happen. And when it happens, skill is humiliated. And you are wondering what next. But look at what could create this kind of humiliation for skill. It says, because time and chance happens to all of them. That is, there is something else that we must take note of. If we ignore it, we will set ourselves up for embarrassment. Time and chance is what is called. Now, for this session, I'm going to skip certain things, and that is to explain what time and chance means. But I would just say to you that what time and chance represents here is uncertainty. So I'm not going to prove it, but I can prove it. But just take it, that time and chance, what this guy is saying is that there is always in mathematics, we call it an error term. An error term. That is, in any situation, there is always a factor of uncertainty. There is always a factor that should be taken to represent something that we ought to know that we do not know. And that thing is such that when it happens, it makes what we know, it humiliates what we know. Because when we do what we know, and we're expecting to get a particular result, the results that the principal has promised us. When this thing happens, which we never paid attention to, it can prevent us from getting the results that the principal promised us. What this statement is saying here is this. It says, look, if you want to enjoy favor, go for skill. You need skill. Skilled people always enjoy favor. They are sought out. They are sought after. All right? the important people. They're given preference over the ones who are not skilled. You can look at that favor in that sense. He said, on a good day, ordinarily, that should happen. But we live in a world that is full of uncertainty. So for you to live exclusively on the principle that once you have skill, you are going to be favored, there's an element of folly in that if you go by this statement. Because this statement is calling our attention to the fact that, look, every principle has an error term, because it is possible that you do what the principle says perfectly and you don't get the results that the principle promised. Why? Because there is the factor of uncertainty. There's a factor of uncertainty. It's one of the reasons why God cautions us. You don't beat your chest and say, you know everything, you can predict once you do this, this is what is going to happen. All right? You know what we always say? The Bible, Paul, I think it was Paul that was cautioning. He said, don't say, or maybe James, it says, don't say, well, tomorrow, next tomorrow, I'm going to go to the market here. I'm going to go to do business here. He said, what you should say is, if God wills, if God permits. That's why we use that term, God willing, I would be, with you tomorrow at 2:00. God willing, next week, I will get that thing done. God willing. Why? Because you don't know the fullness of what is going to happen, no matter the prediction that you have been given. I mean, just like we have weather predictions, all right? Even when the weatherman predicts that the rain is going to fall tomorrow, it's with a probability. They always, if you read the small print, it's always based on probability. Said there is a 70% chance or a 7 in 10 chance that there will be rain tomorrow at so time. Why couldn't they say with certainty? Because there is uncertainty. There is a factor that can come into play that will make that prediction irrelevant. So there is always going to be that factor. So how do you deal with the factor of uncertainty? What we have seen is that even if you are going to rely on skill, understand that skill is limited. Everything here, what this is showing us is everything that you can claim to have as a source of grace, of talent, is limited. They are all limited. Speed is limited. Strength is limited. Wisdom itself, in the sense in which it is used here, is limited. And they are all limited for purpose, because there is a reason that you want speed, so that you can win a race. You don't need speed to fight a battle. You need strength. So each of them, Solomon here was talking about purpose. The purpose of speed, the purpose of strength, the purpose of wisdom, the purpose of skill is so that you are differentiated, is so that you elicit favor, is so that you are treated better than the other man who is not skilled. He said, but understand that all of them are limited because of the factor of uncertainty. So uncertainty is part of life. And so what do? Do we throw our hands up, in surrender? That, well, yes, there is the error term. I can only do my best, that's the way it goes. And that's where the importance of leadership comes in. How? In my study, I have discovered that the antidote to uncertainty lies in what? Counsel. Lies in counsel. And where do you find counsel? Counsel is the lot, is in the possession of leaders. Of leaders. They ran out of wine in John chapter 2. Jesus at the wedding in Cana of Galilee. They ran out of wine. They had prepared wine. I'm sure they believed that, for the crowd that they were expecting, they had more than enough. But suddenly, they ran out of wine. All that they had provided finished, and the people were still there. Their provision was humiliated, isn't it? Their preparation was humiliated. That was not a nice situation to have. It's not a nice situation. It's embarrassing. It's a humiliation. They didn't think that that could happen, but it happened. But it happened. Shouldn't they have prepared for it? Yes, they should. If they had sought counsel from people who know, who have done things like that before, they would have avoided. Most likely, they would have avoided that situation. And so they ran to who? To Jesus. The leader was in the house. And Jesus' mother knew the trick. He said, please help them. Those guys ran out of wine. He said, woman, I'm just here by myself. I'm just an invitee. Don't expose me. And she went ahead and told the servants, look at that guy. Whatever he tells you to do, what? Do it. Said, whatever he tells you to do it. So when you are working with a leader, in fact, that's enough for me to you. I can teach a whole session on leadership based on that single statement. Whatever he tells you to do it. When you locate a leader, a true leader, an authentic leader, if you can establish that this person is a credible leader, please, whatever he tells you to do, what? Do it. Whatever he tells you to do it. Can you imagine? That means what? The solution to your uncertainty is in the hand of the leader. The leader has the secret. The leader has gone ahead of you, has experience. The leader knows the things that can happen that can humiliate your skill, that can humiliate all your provisions. If they had asked the leader before, he would have told them that the number of vessels, of wine or bottles, as the case may be, that you provided will not be enough. Why don't you add 3 more crates? Why don't you add 10 more crates? Why? Because the leader knows from experience the things that can make your plans go haywire. The leader knows. Leadership is the antidote to uncertainty. Not because a leader can stop uncertainty or prevent the factor of uncertainty from being present. No, no leader can do that. But what a leader can clearly do is that a leader can mitigate occurrences of uncertainty. A leader can help you to wriggle out of the humiliation that results when uncertainty shows up. I just love this. Look at it. Let's look at a scenario. Look, Jesus went to preach. 5,000 men showed up, not to talk about the women and the children. And he knew they were hungry. They had been with him for days. And he told these guys, we need to give these people food. We can't allow them to go home like this. If we allow them, some of them will faint. And a leader always watches out for the welfare of his people. That's what he was doing. All right? That's why when he taught us to pray, what was the first thing that he said we should ask for? Give us this day our what? Daily bread. Welfare. When David was talking about his leader in Psalm 23, he said, the Lord is my shepherd, that is leader. And what? I shall not want. And what does he make me to do? The very first thing, he makes me to lie down where? In green pastures. That is, my leader is committed to my welfare. Committed to my welfare. So for those leaders who just say, well, everyone should sort himself out, all of us are collecting salary and all of that, and you don't want to take interest in, how well your people are faring, how well your people, are meeting their basic needs and all of that, you are not a leader. That's not how to do leadership. So he was faced with these 5,000 people, with their wives and with their children. And he said, gentlemen, we need to provide food. And the guys thought, does this man understand what he's talking about? So even if we have so much money, where are we going to get the bread to buy? In this wilderness? And then don't you know how much we're going to require to make the provision? And I love what we were told, a secret that we were told in that encounter is in verse 6 of John chapter 6. So while he was asking them questions, we're told, and he himself knew what he would do. He knew what he would do. The others were confused. The others were busy processing. How do we get out of this situation? We're going to be humiliated here today. Look, 5,000 people, we have not started counting the women and children, who are usually more, as they say. And this man, this our leader, wants to embark on this kind of mission. Everyone get ready for humiliation today, because they couldn't see how. They would have wished that that situation did not arise. But the leader did not fret. The leader was not worried or anything. We're told why. He himself knew what he would do. That's why I insist. Leaders must always continue to learn. Why? Because in every situation, when these situations of uncertainty present itself, you are the one that people are relying on to take them out of it, not anybody else. So you must put yourself in a position where you know what to do. Jesus was not the one that provided bread. Was he the one that provided the fish? No. But he knew how they were going to get out of that situation. He was clear in his mind. He knew. He said he himself knew what he would do. And we are told that when the story did not tell us that he had bread that he brought to that place, and how much bread would he have brought for 5,000 people? But he knew the way out. How did he know the way out? He's a leader. He's experienced. He has insight. He knows the buttons to press. How? Experience. Experience. A leader may not know everything. I agree. But a leader always knows how to deal with every situation successfully. Successfully. Always knows how to get out of every tricky situation. Always is able to rise to the occasion and not disappoint all those looking up to him. Because you can tell me that a leader doesn't need to know everything, and I will tell you, but when the chips are down and the team is at a crossroad and they don't know what to do, guess who they are going to be depending on? Themselves? Certainly no. The leader. And God help you if you fail at that point. You lose everybody. You lose credibility. You don't have to know exactly, you don't have to be the one to do anything. But you know enough to say, you, okay, check that place, you go there, you call that person for me, and by the time you are done, the issue is brought under control. By the time you are done, the issue is resolved. And everybody is wondering, wait a minute. So that is it. Where do you find counsel? You find counsel with a leader. You find counsel with a leader. It's not skill. What kind of skill would have put bread on the table there? What kind of skill? I mean, other than, and the way we were told about the story at the wedding is that it would have been too late for them to go and arrange for any wine. Apart from that, maybe they didn't even have more money, because the wine that Jesus provided, they didn't have to pay for it. And it was probably more than what they even provided for, because notice, it has 6 pots. I tried to do the calculation at some point. You had maybe about, I don't know if my calculation is still correct, maybe about 80 bottles of wine or 750 ml or something like that. Or maybe it was crates, I don't know. But that's it. Let me show you a few things about counsel. Let me show you a few things about counsel. Counsel is the lot of leaders because it comes from exposure. It comes from experience. You can be a farmer and read the theory about how to take seed and plant and nurture, and then there will be harvest. But there are things that you must learn, and you can only learn them on the field when you put those things into practice. And when you do that, I guarantee that things won't go exactly the way theory told you it will go. You will have many headaches. You'll be frustrated. You will hit roadblocks while you are doing the same thing. It's not the process, it's not the problem. But the fact is that there are many factors that can create uncertainty for the process. And usually, when we are describing the process, we can't describe all of those factors. Nobody will tell you whether there's going to be a famine. Nobody will tell you whether rain will not fall. What if we're expecting rain to fall and rain did not fall at all? What will happen? You won't learn that from theory. What if you are expecting rain to fall and they say, okay, for this thing to actually, you need, 10 millimeters or 10 inches of rain, for 30 days or every other day or something like that. What if you have rain just 1 millimeter or 1 inches every 5 days, every 10 days? So rain comes haphazardly. You think you will get the same result? Certainly no. But if you were supervised by a leader, by someone who has been there and done that, that person will prepare you. That person will prepare you. Look at the situation where, look at the parable of the tares, the parable of the weeds, so it is also referred to. And we're told that while men slept, an enemy came and planted weeds among the wheat. And so when the servants of the master came, said, what is this? This is not, you planted wheat. Where did the weeds come from? You know what the master said? The servants didn't know where the weeds came from. You know who answered that? It was the master. He said to them, an enemy has done this. The guys couldn't figure it out. They couldn't fathom it. How did we happen? What is going on? They probably had worried that, wow, how is this going to affect all the work that we have done? What do we do? Sir, this is not what we have been doing. Where did this come from? The master said, don't worry, guys. I know what's going on. I'm on top of this game. An enemy has done this. There has been an interference with the process. And then they were quick. Okay, so what do we do? Let's remove all the the weeds. Master said, gentlemen, hang on there. Don't do nothing. He said, leave them. Let both of them grow together. And then at harvest time, we will harvest the wheat. And after we have saved the crop, then we'll gather all the weeds and burn them with fire. How you see, the guys would have destroyed the entire thing by the move they wanted to make. But the leader was operating from a point of insight, from a higher level. You don't say what the leader has said if you have not seen some things over the years. The leader has been in that business. The leader didn't just start that business. He has seen a few things. He knows what can happen. He knew when you see certain things, you know that this one is the work of the enemy. When you see some other things, you know. When you want to take certain steps to go and uproot the weeds, he said, you will damage the crop. That's not how it is done. But they spoke according to skill. The servants were skilled. This is what they have been doing. But as skilled as they were, they had never seen a situation where they saw so much weeds in between the wheat. It was new to them. They knew they did not plant weeds. So where did this come from? That's why they told the master, did you not plant weeds? Where did these weeds come from? So again, you see in that example, counsel from the leader that helped the situation. Counsel. What if the leader was not there? That entire investment would have gone to waste. And guess what? The skill that had gone into that endeavor would have been thoroughly humiliated. The investment would have been humiliated. People will look at it and say, look at this man. See the farm that he planted. What a shame. Can you imagine that they just destroyed everything? Why? Suddenly some weeds just came from nowhere. But can you see what came to the rescue? Leadership. Leadership. By way of what? Counsel. By way of counsel. A leader supplies counsel. Let me round up by, showing you a few things. Let's look at a few. I'll leave you with a few scriptures that tell you about the power of counsel. And what I want you to just bear in mind is that counsel is not available to everybody. When you are new in the business, when you are new in a role, when you are new on something, you don't have access to counsel in yourself. Your knowledge does not equate counsel. Counsel is what you get from somebody who is more experienced, who is more knowledgeable, who has seen it all practically, and who can deal with uncertainty, who can help you to deal with those factors that can corrupt your implementation of principle. Those factors that they didn't teach you in class. All right. Those things you have not learned yet because you have not invested enough time, enough experience into that role. Because there is what experience will teach you. It's only experience. That's why it is found in leaders. And I've given you quite a range of, examples so that you can, you can appreciate that. So let me just pick one or two here, and you see the importance of counsel. All right, let's look at Proverbs 24 and verses 5 and 6. It says, a wise man is strong. Yeah, a man of knowledge increases in strength. But look at what verse 6 said. It said, for by what wise counsel thou shalt make thy war, and in the multitude of what? Counselors, there is safety. So would I rather follow somebody who is skillful, or would I follow somebody who has counsel? It is possible that somebody with skill is not favored, but it's impossible for somebody with counsel not to be favored. Why? Because the things that frustrate skill do not frustrate counsel. Why? Because counsel is the antidote to that frustration. Put differently, counsel gives value to skill. How does that happen? Because counsel prevents skill from being humiliated by uncertainty. So that thing that will make you apply skill and still not give you favor, counsel can deal with it. Counsel can empower you to deal with it. And counsel is in the hands of leaders. I've shown you how counsel comes. For by counsel, it said, don't go to war. That's the New Living Translation. Don't go to war without wise counsel. So you see the importance of leadership. You see why you need a leader. You see why leaders are given. You see the make of leaders. You can't buy counsel. You can't acquire it in a day or in a year. It's something like Paul was saying, you acquire it by reason of use of principle. As you use it, you gain greater understanding. You see different scenarios. You learn much more. Your understanding of principles is perfected because you are on top of you. Now you know better what are the factors that can play out and undermine the principle that you are practicing. And there is no principle under heaven that is not at the mercy of uncertainty. None. There's none. There's none. Now, look at some other, let's look at some other that is profound. Look at Proverbs 11 and verse 14. What does this say? It says, where no counsel is, the people fall or fail. Where there is no counsel. Why? Because when uncertainty shows up, like we have seen it in Ecclesiastes 9 and verse 11, everything they have invested goes to waste, refuses to produce the expected results. So where there is no counsel, the people fail. But in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. In the multitude of counselors, there is what? Safety. You see the power of counsel? You see the power of counsel? All right, let's end with Proverbs 15. And here we're told, without counsel, purposes are disappointed. Purposes are disappointed. But again, in the multitude of counselors, they are established. So counsel is the antidote for disappointment in your endeavors. Counsel is like taking an insurance policy. That's why it's of great value. And if you commit yourself to developing your capacity to lead, what you are doing is putting yourself in a place where you also have access to counsel. Because guess what? When a leader develops his people to become leaders like him, what does he do? He shares with them the entirety of what he knows, what he has seen, what he has learned. Okay? Jesus said, look, the things that I'm telling you, the things that I'm teaching you, they are the things I learned from my Father. They are the things I saw him do. So you see, when you are in the school of leadership, you are under a leader, you place yourself on the line to acquire things that will take you years to experience in order to acquire them. Why? Because these things now, your leader will share them with you very quickly. I mean, how long would it take for the disciples of Jesus to acquire all the things that Jesus knew? But he groomed them in 3 years, and they began to operate like him. So much so, people saw them and said, these people have been with Jesus. When they listened to the way they were speaking, when they heard what was coming out of their mouth, when they saw the things that they were doing. So you see, when you get yourself on the line for leadership development, and you're not hooked up to skill, skill is exposed to frustration, to humiliation. But when you stay on the line with leadership, you can very quickly acquire the requisite empowerment to deal with uncertainty, to put uncertainty in check, to reign over the terror that uncertainty can unleash on others. Because everywhere you find, if you run through and you are looking to find credible leaders, check your Bible, check the examples. You will not find a credible leader who was humiliated. You won't. You won't. And one very important reason is because of counsel. And counsel is not just that they have counsel. The counsel they give is based on what they have seen, is based on what they have heard, is based on what they have learned, is based on what their hands have handled, is based on what they have looked upon, which you have not been privileged to get exposed to. So it's not about skill, sir. As important as skill is, it's about leadership. It's about leadership. You have seen today that skill is exposed to humiliation, and you won't want to expose yourself, to that. You won't want to expose yourself to that. So let me bring the session to a close here today. I'm still talking on, it's not about skill, it's about leadership. And I did say it's going to be, a couple of series. I might get up to 4 or 5. So I'll continue again next week. And next week, I will share with you yet another dimension, in the hope that at the end of the day, we will be able to make the necessary adjustment in priorities and place leadership where it should be, place skill where it should be. And I'm sure you would know which one to invest your energy in, to invest your time in, to invest your resources in. You will know the balance, how to balance both, and you will be the better for it. So thank you once again for joining me today. It's been a pleasure leading this discussion. So I hope to see you next week by the special grace of God. And next week, it will be part 3 of the same subject. It's not about skill. We're still talking leadership, authentic leadership, and you would have seen other dimensions of it in our session today. I would encourage you still, share. If you find this to be a blessing, don't keep it to yourself. All right. Leadership is about sharing. Okay. Everything that everyone knows is because somebody shared it with us. You don't lose anything by sharing what you know with people. You don't lose anything one bit. That's the beauty of knowledge and learning. That's the beauty of education. It's the beauty of, this. And in any case, we are called to share what we know. We're called to share what we know. In 2 Timothy 2 and verse 2, Paul was saying to Timothy, he said, look, the things that you have learned from me, the things that you have seen me do, the things that have been proven, before the eyes of many witnesses, those things you should teach and commit them into the hands of other people who can then teach others. So it's a chain. It's a chain. Don't keep it to yourself. If you are part of this, group, and you know that how important leadership is, you see that there are benefits in what you are listening to, please, you're under obligation to share it. You're under obligation to share it. All right. So thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of what remains of your week. And I look forward to seeing you again next week by the special grace of God. God bless you. Thank you. So